Thank you so much. And you have just made my day by introducing me as a young.
I know.
That's wonderful. I love that. I'm going to tell my children you said that later. Welcome, thank you so much. It's a wonderful privilege to be in the room with so many amazing people doing so many amazing things. I want to just pause really as you're drawing towards the end of this brilliant day and ask a really important question of you all. And it's this: how do you survive, but not just survive, thrive, when you're working in a ministry that's so focused around the needs of other people? How do you reach the true potential of everything that you're feeling called to, everything that God wants to release in you, when your focus is on the needs of people who can be very vulnerable, who can have many needs, many more than, if you're honest, that you could solve in any one day? How do you do that? And I want to talk about 3 P's with you today. I may chuck in an extra couple of P's as well, see how many you can count as I go through, which to me are absolutely central, whatever your ministry is, as we look at this big question. And the first one is passion. Because there is a huge amount of passion in this room for the things that you do. We are called to be people of passion. You people don't do the work and the ministry that you do just because you have a mild passing interest in it. You do it because you are people of passion, because God has awoken something in you. You see possibility and potential for the people you're with, way beyond what they would see for themselves. You dream, you have visions. You do this with heart and soul. We are called to be people of passion. Corinthians 3:23, whatever work you do, do it with all your heart. And this room is full of people doing just that. So passion is such a godly thing. And it's such a great sign that what you're doing comes from more than just human interest, but it is something that God has called you to. In the New Testament, in Romans, there's a Greek word for passion which is used, which is an amazing word called zeo. It's in Romans 12:11. And I've given you on the screens, you'll see the Passion Translation, because it just felt appropriate to use that one, of Romans 12:11. Be enthusiastic to serve the Lord, keeping your passion towards him boiling hot. And that word zeo is the end of that verse, and it's this amazing word that does literally mean red hot, on fire, literally bubbling over. Apparently, if you say it in Greek, not when I say it in Greek, but if someone who can actually speak Greek says it in Greek, it's onomatopoeic. It sounds like water bubbling. I like to think of it as when you pour a glass of champagne and you're a bit too enthusiastic and it fizzes over the top. We are called to be people with a zeo faith. That doesn't mean we're always lively and jumping around and happy. Zeo is about what keeps you going, what drives you on the rough days, when actually none of the things you hoped for came true. When the person you've been praying for months has had another difficult experience, when something has gone wrong. Why do you keep doing this? Why? Why do you do it? Because you're passionate. Because God has lit something that burns inside of you, that drives you to keep doing what you're doing. And from that passion, our passion for the people that we serve and work with, comes the second P, because we desperately desire to see power. We want to see power transforming the lives of the people that we work with. We want to see breakthrough and change. Our hope and vision for the future of the people we serve is great, and we want to see that released. One of my favorite descriptions of God is the one that comes from Micah 2, when it talks about the one who breaks open the way. And we come to our ministry, whatever it is that you're doing, with that passion and the desire to see that breakthrough power lived out in the lives of the people we work with. We have big dreams and we long to see them effected. And that passion and the desire to see that power can be a powerful combination in the impact that it has on us. And the risk is, you see, is that in our 21st century culture, we misunderstand how we take our passion and turn it into power. Because we live in a culture that teaches us that if you want to be brilliant, if you want to be the best, if you want to see wonderful things happen, You have to make yourself superhuman. Somehow, as a leader, you have to go beyond the normal limits of human life. You have to make yourself bigger, better, faster, cleverer, work harder, sleep less. And somehow you're supposed to pull off these amazing outcomes for the people that you work with. And because we're people of such great passion, the risk is that we do this even more than most people. Because we really, really, really want to see it happen. It really matters. You know, I've got on my social media feeds at the moment, interesting what the adverts that come up on your social media feeds tell you about yourself. But at the moment, I keep getting those ones that are for apps that apparently mean I can download a book and then listen to it at 3 times the normal speed. Who does that? Some of you are like, oh, I absolutely don't know who does that. If it's you, then you can tell me afterwards why. But why is because apparently, according to these adverts, all the great CEOs are reading like 100 books a week. And I'm only reading a measly one, maybe a month, if my children are civilized and I don't fall asleep 1 page after I start. So we have a push to become superhuman, better in what we do. And there's a risk there for us because the church in particular should be a place where we demonstrate the best model of flourishing and thriving in the things that we do. And the risk is that we actually demonstrate again and again a model where we burn out more, where we exhaust ourselves, where we push ourselves so far that our passion pushes us off the end of the cliff of our energy. And actually, it's a total misunderstanding of what the Bible teaches us about where power really comes from. 2 Corinthians 12:9 tells us that power is made perfect, not in human strength or brilliance or cleverness, but in weakness. That word power is the dunamis power of God, that word, the Greek word that has the same root as our word dynamite. It's the blow apart, breakthrough power. And it's made perfect, completed, brought to its perfect form through our weakness, our frailty, our human limitation. We're not called to push the limits and somehow transcend our humanity. There's something amazing that God does through the way that we work as normal, limited human beings, which is important. 2 Corinthians 4:7, and apologies that the reference is wrong on this slide, but it is 2 Corinthians 4:7, this is from the Message version, says, we carry this precious message around in the unadorned clay pots of our ordinary lives. You are very ordinary today. This is not an insult. It's a good thing. Because it's to prevent anyone confusing God's incomparable power with ours. You are not supposed to become amazing, superhuman, and brilliant. You are not superhuman, but you carry something supernatural within you. And that's what we need to take out to the people that we work with. That's what will bring the transformation and the change and the breakthrough that we so long to see. But we have to understand that and step out of our culture, because otherwise it's so easy just to be head down, working hard, pushing yourself, and to forget this amazing paradox of the way that God works. He chooses to work on this, his kingdom, with his people. So the bad news today that I have to share is that you do have limits. You are human. There are things you can't do. Isn't it interesting if you think about Jesus? He was the example of God in a human body. God, with all that power and authority, in a human body with the limitations that created. And you would expect Jesus, he was only on the earth for 30 odd years. He only did his ministry in the last few years. If I were him, which is a very bad way to start a sentence, I know, but if I were Jesus, I would just have thought, blow it. I've got maybe 3 years. I can sleep later in heaven. I'm just going to work flat out. I'm going to heal everyone. Do you want an appointment with me? Absolutely. Come and see me. No problem whatsoever. Of course I can fit you in. But what we see again and again is Jesus choosing to work within the limitations of his humanity. He takes time out. He sleeps. He tells the disciples off for not eating. How many times have you skipped lunch? He told them off for that. We see him stopping and taking time to deal with his own emotional reaction to the pain that he witnessed, withdrawing to quiet places, choosing to spend time with his dearest friends, the people who were closest to him. How many of your dearest friends have had some quality time with you in the last couple of months? And the thing is if Jesus didn't choose to overstep the limitations of his humanity, then why do we think that we can, or even should? Maybe there's another message for us here, because burnout is a reality. People, I wish I could tell you how many times I have heard people telling their stories of the amazing visions that God gave them, and of how much they wanted to do, and of how desperately hard it was when they experienced burnout. I spent some time just last week with somebody who had, through a lifetime of ministry, who had burned out and who is unwell now, and it was desperately sad to hear that story. I've heard people of all ages telling stories of both genders, people who have been so powerful in their jobs until the moment that they got up one morning and they just couldn't do it anymore. Do you know, none of those people have said to me, I totally saw this coming. I absolutely expected that this might be me. None of us expect it could be us, but we must recognize that we do have limits. And this is important because of my third P, persistence. I think that the ministry and the calling and the passion that God has placed in your heart is one that means that I would hope you're still doing it in 2 years, 5 years, 10 years from now. I hope that this is a lifetime calling that you can affect and connect with so many people through what you do. But if we don't take some positive decisions for how we manage some of these things, the risk is that we will start a race as though it was a sprint, when in fact it's a marathon. And you won't make the end. And we all want to make the end. Paul says, run in such a way as to get the prize. You want to finish the race. That same verse, the Romans 12:11, you've got the message version up on your screens. At the end, it talks about our zeal, our passion. At the beginning, it talks about something that we are called not to do, which is to lose our energy. The message translates it, don't burn out. Don't run it out. Don't come out so hard and fast when you're called to something that a year later you're exhausted and you're not doing it anymore. Sustain it over the long run. You're called to do this long term. Reach the full potential of everything you could do. Don't make the mistake of thinking you can be super person and then discovering that you're just human. So 3 things I would encourage you to ponder with all the excitement and all of the vision that's been ignited within you today as you think about how you move on. And the first thing is this: watch your limits, because you have some. By all means, push them. I work 4 days out of 5 a week in a local church. I'm also director of Mind and Soul. I speak, I write, I have, at the last count, 2 children, 3 cats, 1 husband. I'm not planning for any of those to increase anytime soon. But we only just got the cats, just so you know, that's the one that is a surprise to me. I'm all for pushing the limits. I love what I do. But if you want to push the limits, you must know when to stop. Because if you don't, the risk is that your body or your brain will stop you, because it will become exhausted if you drain all your resources. So watch your limits. Don't let your passion push you too far. I know you want to say yes to everything. I know you want to help everyone all the time, but you can't. Where are the limits you should be putting around your time? Look out for the early warnings. You know, your emotions are like the warning lights on the dashboard of a car. When we start to struggle with stress, our emotions start bubbling to the surface so much more easily. But many of us, when we feel those emotional warnings, what we do is the emotional equivalent of just sticking a piece of gaffer tape over the warning light and then continuing to drive the car. Watch for your warning signals, and sometimes you might need to stop and take some time out. So that's number 1. Number 2, practice compassion. You know, you have these amazing cells in your brain called mirror neurons, and their function is that when you are witnessing somebody else do something, they fire in your brain as though it were you. So when you're watching Andy Murray or whoever at Wimbledon, it's one of the reasons we love it so much, because somewhere in your brain it's like that was you, if he's winning, hopefully. What's interesting is how mirror neurons are implicated in empathy, because what the evidence shows is that when we are with another human being who is suffering emotional pain, we're not just connecting with it in a theoretical way, even just a sympathetic way. On some level, because of those mirror neurons, we are experiencing a degree of that pain ourselves. There are studies that show the emotion centers in an observer's brain lighting up in the same way that they would if it was their pain. There are studies that show the physiological markers of stress rising as someone is with somebody else going through a difficult situation. Now, it varies how much this happens for you. There is a scale. And of most concern are the people who are incredibly instinctively empathetic. Some of you know that's you. And the risk with this stuff is either that you're so empathetic that every time you spend time with people, you are draining your own emotional bank account. You are experiencing physiological stress yourself. And that, we know, places you at higher risk of burnout. Or, on the other side, the risk is that in order to continue doing the work you do, you increasingly just disconnect emotionally from the people you're with. And that's not great either. So what do we do? What are we called to in the Bible? It's interesting that the Bible doesn't talk about empathy. What you see again and again is a call to compassion. And in the last 10 years or so, there has risen within the field of psychology a massive interest in compassion training. Because compassion is subtly different from empathy. It's not that you don't care, of course you do. But the focus, instead of being on the emotional pain, is on bringing change. It's on action. It's on desiring, willing, we might say praying, for a better outcome for that person. And there are studies that show that the more compassionate you can become, the less of the brain change that we see where your own emotional center is activated when you're with someone. We know that not only does it make you more effective in your caring because it drives you to actually bring change, but it increases your longevity in that role. It makes you more able to sustain your caring. So practice compassion. Go Google compassion training. There is heaps around on it. Or I've read that there is a bit about it in my book, Refuel, if you're interested. Practice compassion. Sometimes the way that we care needs to be more than instinct. It needs to be thought out. And then number 3, possibly the simplest, but also oddly the hardest. Get some rest. You people are amazing, but I bet you don't find it that easy to just stop. Actually stop. I don't mean stop and also be on your phone. I mean actually stop. And the thing is, what we've got to remember is stress doesn't have to be about distress. Sometimes stress is the things we love. We absolutely love doing it. We're in the sweet spot of everything that we know we should be doing with our life, but it's demanding. It's stressful, even if it isn't distressing. And the risk is therefore that you'll just do it all the time. But your body needs rest. Remember those ancient rhythms. You are created in the image of God, who set right from the beginning in creation the rhythm of Sabbath. You know, that is in the commandments. Okay, some of you sound like you don't know. It's quite high up. Go and look it up later. And some of the ones after it are quite easy not to do, but the Sabbath one is a lot more awkward. So we are called, we are told, we are commanded to rest, but how many of us actually do it? Think about how you do rest. And it's not just about rest for our bodies, it's about time out to connect with God. Because ultimately that zeo passion doesn't come from a humanly generated passion. It comes from God working within us. This is the amazing truth, that it is God who works within you. If you are trying to solve all the problems of all the people you care for with a humanly generated cleverness, I don't know how clever you are. It may take you quite a long way, but you will fall off the end of it eventually. I don't think you can solve all the problems that face the people you care for. We have to be good carriers of this supernatural thing that we bring to the people. that can bring breakthrough. So connect with God. You know, most of us will have a rhythm at the end of the day that before you go to sleep, you plug in your phone to recharge. When did you last recharge yourself? Do you recharge your phone more than you recharge you? So let's turn this around, people. Let's celebrate our humanity and our limitations. Let's recognize the potential of what God can do, the power of what we can carry, not through our brilliance, but through our frailty, through our willingness to be vulnerable. And guys, thank you so much for all you do. My prayer for you is that you continue to do it for the long run. So thank you so much for listening to me today.